Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Development Standards Committee. Can I remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, but also being broadcast live on the Angus Council YouTube channel. So can I again remind all those joining us remotely to turn their microphones to mute unless they wish to speak, and indicate they wish to do so by raising their hands remotely. I can also remind members present to keep their cameras on at all times throughout the meeting. Thank you. Apologies for absence, Laura.
No apologies, Convener.
Okay, thank you. And have any members any declarations of interest or statements of transparency in today's agenda? Councillor Clark.
Good morning, Convener, and good morning, colleagues and everybody else. I would wish to say that I have not had direct involvement with the only planning application we've got here in item 7. I've done nothing and said anything which would preclude me from actually taking part. So I'll not be going out of the room. I won't be taking a full part. It's simply a statement of transparency, because I am a local councillor and people will ask the questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other? No declarations? No. Okay, thank you. We can move on to agenda item 3 on building warrants. This committee is asked to note that during the period 8th September to 10th of October of this year, a total of 67 building warrants, 1 demolition warrant and 21 amendments to warrants have been approved, with an estimated cost of £4,307,745. A copy of these approved warrants have been sent to every member. Is that noted? Thank you. And under delegated decisions, again for the same period, the 8th September to 10th October, 45 applications have been approved and 1 refused under the Planning Acts through the scheme of delegation to officers. And again, members have had copies of these sent to them. Again, is that noted?
Noted.
Thank you. The agenda item 5, of course, is to submit for approval as a correct record the minute of our meeting of this committee on the 16th September 2025. Opportunity for any members for any comments or adjustments considered necessary to the minute. If not, the minutes noted. Agreed.
Noted.
Thank you. Right. Couple of items today. The first is the an appointment to the Development Management Review Committee. This committee agreed in June of this year that DMRC membership should remain at 6 members, 3 from the administration and 3 from the non-administration. Committees advised that Councillor Dorden has resigned from the DMRC, and accordingly the committee is asked to fill the vacancy. Can I ask Councillor Meehan, do you have a nominee?
Yes, I nominate myself, Councillor Meehan. Okay,
thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second that, Councillor Tupe. Thank you.
Councillor Fotheringham. No other nominations?
Is it agreed?
So that all agreed, sorry.
Agreed.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor Meehan's appointed to the DMRC. And can I also just thank also Councillor Dorden for her contribution to this committee and the DMRC in her time here as a councillor, and welcome back Councillor Stewart to this committee as well. Thank you. Agenda item 7 relates to report 290/25. Report deals with planning application number 25/00369 submitted on behalf of Mr Jamie McLaren for the change of use of residential dwelling to short-term let and dwelling house at 5 Marches, is it Lower Road in Forfar. Mr Taylor, could you present the slides, please?
Thanks, Convener, and good morning, members. As you've indicated, item 7 is a local level planning application which relates to the property with the address 5 Marches, Lower Road, Forfar. The application relates to the change of use of a residential dwelling to enable it to continue to be used as a dwelling, but also to enable it to be used as a short-term let during periods when the owner-occupier is not present within the property. So, as usual, we start with an extract from the local development plan proposals map for Forfar in this case, and it shows the approximate position of the application site, which sits off Lure Road at the south of Forfar. If we move to the left, we can see a bit more detail of the site as identified by the dashed red line. We have a detached 2.5-storey dwelling house within a substantial plot. This is an area which is characterised by residential development, low density development of Hillside Road and of Lure Road. So members are aware, planning decisions require to be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. In this case, the main policy framework is provided by NPF4 Policy 30 and Local Development Plan Policy TC16, and in general terms, they provide a supportive policy framework for sustainable tourism development, but that support is not unqualified and it requires identified impacts to be appropriately mitigated. So this slide on the right-hand side, firstly, shows the position of the site in a bit more detail. So you can see it is a substantial plot, I think about 4,000 square metres in size. A 2.5-storey property sits within that. I think it presents as 2.5-storey to the north, but because it's built into the slope, it then presents more as a 1.5-storey to the south. Within the curtilage of the property is a swimming pool and hot tub, which would be used by sort of occupants of the short-term let. If we move to the left-hand side, we can see the location of the 4 bedrooms within that property. It is a fairly substantial property, and the submitted information says or suggests it would be occupied by a maximum of 10 guests. So the main issue for this property, proposal, relates to impacts on amenity, and we have 7 objections from 6 households which live nearby. And the intention of this slide on the left is to show the position of the closest parties making representations, which are located to the north, to the south, and to the west. So matters identified in objections from the public are addressed in the report before members. As I've suggested, the main issue really relates to amenity issues, particularly in respect of potential for noise, amenity issues associated with the use of the swimming pool and hot tub, which are shown in the approximate position of the swimming pool shown to the south of the residential dwelling, and the star shows the approximate position of the hot tub. So the applicant's agent has considered the matters raised by third parties and has submitted a noise and neighbour management plan in support of the application. And that's really intended to allow the applicant some flexibility on how the proposed use would be utilised, but also providing safeguards for the amenity of neighbouring property. And just a number of the measures which are identified in that noise management suggest that the property wouldn't be available for use for parties. There will be a minimum of 5 nights, a 5-night stay to try and reduce the likelihood of that type of thing happening. There will be a control within that preventing use of the swimming pool, preventing use of the hot tub and other outdoor areas between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m, preventing things like external noise, amplified sound within the garden ground. In terms of concerns of neighbours, the applicant has also suggested there would be available a 24-hour manned phone line that would be manned by the management company who has experience of managing this type of property, and I understand they're available for any questions of members subsequent to my presentation. In addition to the measures identified in the noise management plan, members will be aware there is also a further control provided through the licensing process. Not only does a use of this nature require planning permission, but it requires a short-term licence. And that allows us, for example, as a council, to take action were any issues to emerge in terms of the use of the property. But having regard to the information available, it's considered those impacts can be suitably mitigated, allowing flexibility for the applicant in terms of the way they want to use the property, but also providing an amenity safeguard for neighbouring properties. Just got a few photographs of the site to give a bit more of context. So this is taken from Lure Road itself. We can see the property known as 5 Marches in the wooded area on the right-hand side, the access to the site in the foreground. Access to the site will be taken from an area of Forfar which is, I believe, subject to a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Colleagues in the road service unconcerned in terms of road traffic and pedestrian safety. Impacts likely to be very similar to conventional residential use in that respect. Got a couple of photographs taken from the south of the property showing the sort of swimming pool and the hot tub area. So What this shows is the property on the left-hand side. We have the swimming pool on the right-hand side. This is on the south side of the property, and fairly substantial boundary treatments between the dwelling and the closest neighbouring residential receptors. And looking back the other way, you can see the swimming pool obviously covered this time of year, so probably less likely to be used in colder months of the year rather than all year round use. This is looking in a westerly direction. We have the hot tub on the right hand side. Again, controls proposed to ensure that these facilities only used during sort of normal daytime type hours. So this is an application which has been considered against policies of the development plan and is considered to attract support from the development plan. It's considered that the objections raised by third parties perfectly understandable, but the applicants made reasonable endeavours to try and address them through the submission of a noise management plan. The application has been subject to consultation, including with colleagues in environmental health who have no objections subject to planning conditions requiring that the noise management plan be implemented, and were any issue to emerge requiring a review process of that noise management plan, and a planning condition is proposed to secure that mitigation measure. As indicated, there's a further control available to the council through the short-term licensing process. And having regard to all of the available information, consultation responses and the comments of third parties, it's considered that the proposal is acceptable, complies with the development plan, and on that basis is recommended for conditional approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. First of all, can we open this to members for any questions they have of him on this application? Any questions, Mr. Taylor? No?
Convener, I don't have a question of Mr Taylor, but I do have a legal.
Happy to go with that. You can perhaps put it through Mr. Taylor, and we can put it to the legal advisor.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Just as I read, the same as everybody else in this room reads assiduously these papers, title deeds comes up a fair bit. Now people discuss their title deeds. We're not discussing the title deeds of the applicant. I just wonder if I could get some kind of steer on that. Is this something that is, I can see it wouldn't be a planning material consideration, but if we could get that, because it does upset people, and is worthy of some mention.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Clark. As you'll see at section 7.3 of the report, we address that matter. It's not a material planning consideration, but in terms of the further reassurance you're looking for, I understand that my colleague in the legal team is available as well. I'll let her come in.
Tina, could you just come in and help assist on this one?
Absolutely. Yes. I agree entirely with the report, and I agree with what officers have said. It's not a material planning condition and shouldn't be considered in this forum.
Appreciated, Convener. Appreciated.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brays.
Yes, thanks, Convener. I note from the papers that the plot measures around 4,050 square metres, so it is a really quite sizable plot. But there's no figure put on the floor space of the dwelling house. And I think in this case, especially when it's over, it's basically lower at one side of the house than the other. It's really difficult from the slides to get a good impression of the scale of the dwelling house. And it's not really material in this particular case, but I wondered if there's a reason why for future applications and reports, if we couldn't have a square meterage of properties. Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
Is there a technical reason why that couldn't be given?
Okay.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Brace. No, that's certainly something we can provide in reports. I think this is probably exceptional, this property, in the sense that it is, as you suggest, a very large property, but only 4 of the rooms are identified for bedroom use. There's lots of other rooms available for users of the property, but I think there would be, if it gives any reassurance, I think the short-term licence would have a control on the maximum occupation of the dwelling, if that provided any comfort for members.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Brays. Have members any other questions for the officer? Nope, not seeing any more questions, in which case we do have a couple of speakers available today. Can I just ask them or let them know that under Standing Order 12 of Angus Council, applicants, supporters and objectors are given the opportunity to address any points which they wish the committee to take into account in coming to its decision. Speakers will be given 5 minutes only. I'd remind speakers that members of this committee have already been provided with the opportunity to read all the submissions and thus may already be familiar with most of the points raised by speakers. The first speaker this morning is Miss Alison Hill. Good morning, Miss Hill. I know you're online, so again, you've got 5 minutes to address committee, and when you get to a minute to go, I'll just butt in and let you know you've only got a minute left. Okay, off you go.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I live with my 95-year-old mother, so if you hear someone asking for a cup of tea, it's me she's asking, and not any of the members in the room. So the reason I wasn't going to bother actually until I read the article in the Courier, which raised even more kind of questions for us. The immediate community have a very, very good relationship. We rely on one another for certain things. So Brian, who's been next door since 1977, and Sylvia and Peter, who've been next door to that, closest to 5 Marches since 1981. They know the area, they know the people that have been around. The recent storm, we're all out clearing stuff off the road, so there's people around, and so that it doesn't stop the flow of traffic, that, you know, we're alerting people that there's trees hanging down. Very much a community thing here. We're well aware that this meets the tourism plan, and actually the restrictions that have been suggested are very welcome. Because that would help with the kind of amenity and the day-to-day living for ourselves. However, ideally, rather than a short let, we would like a family in there enjoying the pool and laughing and chatting, you know, next to a school. It's always reassuring and comforting that there are people around. So for us, there will not be people around. There will be short-term lets. There'll be no probably relationship with us because of the length of the nature that they're here for. And I couldn't find any evidence of what benefit to tourism or Angus indeed that this application brings. I don't claim to be any expert. I've had to kind of do my research just on the back of the notification. So what I noted down was, you know, for the owner, it's an investment. You know, any money spent in that property, it's the owner who will benefit eventually. The owner has choices, which is great. They've got the right to exercise those choices in terms of sort of short lets, becoming a landlord, which would secure more of an occupancy than the short lets. From Visit Scotland and Scottish Government website, sort of around about March time, occupancy levels for these types of property is about 30%, and overall annually somewhere between 55 and 70%. So this is a beautiful property, high end, so therefore high end money will be expected to pay for the stay. And I had a look at the Factors website, and one of the properties, similar but not exactly, was commanding a daily rate, nightly rate of £325. 100% occupancy would give the revenue 118,000 a year. And, you know, even on a 60% occupancy rate, that would generate an income of £71,175. Whereas being a landlord would only generate an income of about 30,000, but it would mean that somebody was in the property longer, over a longer period of time. And I suppose that's one of my concerns. We've had police, and the owner probably doesn't know this, or the Factor, because they don't have that local knowledge. We've had police at the door when there's been crimes of people trying to climb through our bathroom windows. We can't keep them open during the day or at nights and trying doors. And so I suppose that the final thing is that, yes, the owner has a lot of choices here. We don't necessarily do. We don't have second places to go and live. This is where we live. and that's it. And to remain on a positive note, it wasn't only about expecting the best to happen, but also about accepting that whatever happens is for the best. And I suppose that's my message that I wanted to convey today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms Hill. That was very clear. If you stay online, there may be some questions for you from members of the committee. I'll just ask them now if any member has a question for Ms Hill this morning. No? Okay, Ms Hill, thank you very much for your contribution. We'll move on to we've one other speaker, Mr Stuart Clark, who's also attending remotely, is the agent for the applicant. Mr Clark, you're the LSE. Do you wish to address the committee, or are you seeking to just answer questions only?
I address briefly, just to give a very brief overview of the situation, and obviously our clients, the owners as well.
Okay, Mr Clark, in that case then, that's fine. Again, you've got 5 minutes as well, and again, I'll remind you once you're 4 minutes in. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So the current owners have appointed us as a management company. Just very quickly, we have an office in Dundee. I live in Angus myself. We'll have a team in our office in Dundee. We manage around about 80 properties just now and have done for about 8.5 years now. And I'm just mentioning that because obviously we've got systems and processes in place which we've developed to ensure a smooth running of all of our properties. This is quite a unique property. The owners actually stay abroad. This was and will be their family home in the future. The reason that they have opted for a short-term let is to ensure the property is looked after, not only for them but also for the surrounding neighbourhood. And they wish to return at some point, and they will utilise the property when they come back to visit family and friends. So that's their main reason for choosing that, and their main reason for choosing ourselves is to, like I say, make sure it's managed professionally. The owners have also, as we do, have got in touch with local independent companies, businesses, and it's probably just to partially answer Alison Hill's comments on what it may bring to the community. We'll bring visitors, both tourists and sometimes business travellers to the area. We encourage them to obviously spend their money in the area. We connect them with particularly independent retailers and businesses. The owner has been in touch with local businesses, Align Pilates by Rosie, Results Gyms, and a number of other local independent businesses for them to spend their money in the area. They're also been in touch with community youth centre and other businesses, and they are looking to contribute themselves from the income that they receive for their short-term let. They're looking to contribute in some way to the local businesses and community, which is an illustration of the fact that they are coming back to live in this community. This is where they're from. I don't know if I really want to say too much more than that. I could talk a lot about our processes and how we manage things, but I think that may be addressed through any questions that are raised. I could probably talk for a long time about our processes and how we not only reduce the likelihood of any disturbances, but also what we do should there be disturbances. And the fact that we've got a 24-hour helpline, and we will be sending letters to neighbours, and I can introduce myself like I have on numerous occasions to neighbours, so that they know us personally to get in touch with. But I think I'll leave a lot of that to any questions that may arise if that's more suitable.
Okay, Mr Clark, thanks very much for that. And there will be questions. I can see hands up already. I'll maybe start myself off with just one question for you. And having read the report and listening to Ms Hill as well, and having talked to one or two members, on the hours of operation that's in the noise abatement strategy, if you like, here, where it's really saying that people won't be permitted to use the pool or the hot tub after 9 p.m. I think we've already heard that probably from, I don't know, I'm not sure if this pool's heated or not, but if it's not, then I can't imagine it being used any time between October and early spring. But in the warmer months, it's difficult to keep people out of a garden in the summer months after 9 p.m. at night. But if there was a family there, regardless, they'll do exactly the same. What I'm really trying to get at is how do you expect that to operate really? And my second question is, and this is private business, and where one of the points Ms Hill came up wasn't relevant on values of the cost of nightly stays and things. But I understand why they might want to put in a 5-night minimum contract. Is because everybody has fear of hen nights and stag parties and all that sort of thing arriving for a long weekend. But it may be something that is, if the price per night is as much that it's not worth somebody paying that extra night with the aim of still coming only for 3 or 4 nights. Is that all been taken into account and considered? A bit of a convoluted question, sorry about that, but if you could address that first, then I'll pass on to other members of the committee.
No, I think that's a good point. It really comes down to our experience. We have the tools and the software to not only manage the rates, but manage the booking rules. And a very simple one is the minimum length of stay. And that can vary depending on the season. Sometimes we will bring properties down to a 3-night minimum during the winter months if the data shows that that's popular. We will put the rates up so that it's not a cheap stay for people. With this property, though, we're looking to stick to the 5-night minimum. In our experience, when you've got a property where you're providing an experience, i.e. it's a property with a lovely large kitchen that people will maybe look to sit and eat at the property, and yeah, they will use the pool, obviously, you can demand a higher rate because you're given value for money. And when you've got a sizable nightly rate for a longer period, with my experience, you do not get people that are willing to pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds, probably thousands of pounds for nights that are not going to stay. On a general basis, we do not experience parties at our properties. Categorically, we do not experience parties. In the past 8.5 years, we've experienced 5 parties, and they were all during lockdown. And we managed them effectively and stopped them with our relationship with the neighbours, who were the ones that informed us of noise and excess people in the property. Apart from that, we've had no parties at any of our properties over the 8 years. So to answer your question, how we're going to manage it, you know, we all know without me physically being there, if somebody's going to jump in the pool at 9:05, I can't stop them, and I may not know about it, but we're going to have very clear messages for the guests. We're going to have communications with the guests prior to arrival. We provide a very clear guide for the guests 24 hours prior to arrival. It's an electronic guide with house rules, how to operate everything, etc. And if need be, we'll also put physical signs in the property if we feel that's appropriate. But it's going to come down to our relationship with the neighbours. And if there ever has been a concern with a neighbour at any of our properties, our neighbours can get in touch with us, and we do act appropriately. We have more control over a short-term let than we do with an owner-occupier or a tenanted property, whereas we have the ability to stop something or, if need be, evict somebody. I've not had to do that before, apart from when we've had a couple of parties during lockdown. But again, we're looking at worst case scenario. We have control over that property.
Okay, Mr Clark, that's fine. Thanks for the extensive answer to my extensive question. In the room first, questions. Councillor Beattie.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, on page 6 of the combined papers is a brief summary of your complaint management and escalation process. Can you maybe give us a wee bit more detail surrounding what actually happens when you have to visit the property, and how soon after a complaint you would visit a property, and how quickly after that you would actually deal with that?
Yes, of course. And obviously every concern is unique in its own merit. We have to have a balance of providing an excellent guest experience, but obviously there's house rules to that. So if we were to assume that there was a concern from a neighbour about noise or something that shouldn't be happening, they assume they would phone us. We would answer on that phone call immediately. We can also be emailed or messaged. We'll have those facilities. We would contact the guests and speak to them. Again, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, it's, you're parked over somebody's drive, or being told there's excess noise. It almost always deals with the situation. Guests aren't turning up to cause problems. They're maybe just a wee bit forgetful that we've got neighbours, if that was to happen. But to answer your question, if it did escalate and it was a big issue, we could go out immediately. There's no hesitation. There's no reason to hesitate. I stay in Angus. My business partner stays in Dundee. So we're both within probably 15, 20 minutes from the property. We do have other staff that can attend that are in similar distances away. We've got experience, we've got SOPs on how to deal with absolutely everything. And we will speak to the neighbour as well as the guests if need be. So again, it goes back to having full control over these things, but there's no winning situation for us or our clients, the owners, to have a property that is going to cause concerns for neighbours. That doesn't work for anybody, and I include that in ourselves. So we do everything possible to avoid this, and certainly to act should there be any concerns.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Beattie and Mr Clark. Again, sorry, other in the room? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. It's in relation to the 24-hour helpline. It would be nice to know, what does that consist of? Is someone actually awake 24 hours a day waiting for a call from someone? And if it did pose an issue and it led to, I think it says in the papers, they can be evicted, how are you going to do that? Again, that's out of interest. Thank you.
So during office hours, it is my office who will handle all calls and communication. We've been working with a third-party company, a UK company, that manages all out of office hours for us. It took us 7 years to find and trust somebody that would provide the same level of service that we do. And the way they do things is exactly the way that we do it. They have all information on the property. They have all contact details, including mine. And my phone, unfortunately, stays on 24 hours a day for emergencies. So they really need me. They're more than capable of handling all situations. But if it is a visit, for example, it would be myself or my business partner that would probably be the most likely people to attend. So I hope that gives you a clear overview of who answers the calls. So it is a human being at all times. With regards to how do we evict, if I attend and there's an issue and it is an eviction situation, I think I could do this business for another 10 years and that won't arise. But to answer your question, if it did arise, I'm not going to get physical with anybody. Obviously, I'm there to ask them to leave. If there was a situation that I couldn't handle, I believe it would be a police situation, and I would have no hesitation in phoning the police. Like I say, I can't envisage that happening, but to answer your question, it would be myself, and if need be, I would phone the police without hesitation.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Clark. Thanks, Councillor Meehan. We've got Mr. Clark. Councillor Clark, we've got a question for you now.
We're not related at all, Mr. Clark, are we? A couple of things. I've gone right back to when you start. Now, you've obviously got a lot of experience, and we've been asking kind of searing questions about when things go wrong. Now, I've got experience just in this year in England and Cornwall of using a place. And the best one out of the three was quite palatial, but nothing to do with that. It was the very fact that the owner was on site. That made a big difference. It really did. We were not difficult people, I hasten to add, but it was actually quite good to have the owner on site. You were part of the home, if you like. And I think that really works well. Now, you can't have that all the time, so we understand that. And, you know, I'd be the first to say that I want to encourage people to have places for tourists to come to Scotland, definitely. But I just will always worry, and as a local member, I will always worry what's going to happen to neighbours. Now, we've gone at length about what would happen at the other end. I'll go right back to the beginning and say, is there a mechanism? Now, you've mentioned that you'll have rules and things. You'll have a house book, no doubt. I've seen that, a guest book, all the things that people should do if anything goes wrong or whatever. So I'm just concerned because, whether we like it or not, there's still somebody somewhere in Angus, there's still somebody, in Dundee. I'm a Dundonian, I ken how far it is. And I'm just thinking in terms of what do you do at the start? Does somebody actually go in and welcome people? Or is it just a case that they sign up and that's it done, they turn up on the day? Because a lot of these things have got these keypads. Did that myself. There wasn't anybody there. But that's a big property with a lot of things and a lot of people round about it used to a community. So I just wonder what you do at the very start. That's long-winded, but it's important.
No, that's fair enough. And the honest answer is it is the guest will access the property without anybody being there. That's the direct answer. We cannot do a meet and greet for 80 properties. It's not physically possible. We take a deposit, a safety deposit, which is not only there to account for any damage. And again, we do that for a lot of properties. Very rarely do we use it. But it's also a mindful thing for the guest, which I think does help. And I think it's a fair question, but if I'm to be candid, I'm struggling to think of what. I mean, you're saying there's nobody physically there, and you're right, but I don't know when we need to be there. You know, there's very real concerns from neighbours when we bring a new property to the market, and they're real concerns, and the main ones are noise and parties, and it's just something that we don't experience. And that doesn't mean that we don't have processes in place, and we don't continue to do everything possible to reduce the chances of that happening, but it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Mr. Clark, I'm just going to come in here actually because the questions and some of the emphasis is actually moving away from actual things that are planning considerations for the committee. But thanks anyway for that. Councillor Braze will bring you in.
Oh, well, thanks, Convener. I hope this isn't too far off track then. But I just wondered, Mr. Clark, do you or your management company, do you deal exclusively with short-term lets?
Yes, 100%. That's what we do.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Councillor Braze. So any other questions online or in the room for the agent? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark, for your contribution this morning. We'll now move to comments from members. Any comments at all? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. Having heard the responses and read in detail the papers, I'm of the view that I have no issues with this application. I would be minded to grant.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. Any other comments? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I might be a bit left of field, convener. Please indulge me for just a couple of minutes. I'm looking at NPF 4 here, policy 30, which describes all the things, the reasons why we should actually grant an application and why everybody's looked at this and decided it's a great idea. I suppose mine will always be, and I'm struggling to find a way around this, mine will always be the same policy to a certain extent, because if I turn it on its head, there's mitigation in there for me to say this is not a good idea for the people around about. But I'm not daft. I have to wait and see whether I would get away with that or not. But it's just something I would like to say right now. Thank you.
Councillor Melville.
Yeah, thanks, convener. And like has been mentioned, hearing the responses, I have no issues with this. I think the point to make, though, and the point to reiterate, and Ed made this earlier, is that this is just the first part of the process in terms of this property and its journey to being used as a short-term let. It does also then need to go through the licensing regime, which imposes much stricter controls on what can and can't be done, and also acts as a real safeguard for neighbours, because if there are any issues, that can then go to the licensing committee and be dealt with at that point. So I think it's just important to reiterate that this is just a planning matter, but the real kind of meat on the bones of the short-term let issue will be dealt with at the licensing committee.
Thanks, Councillor Melville. It's a point well made. Councillor Brays.
Well, I think Councillor Melville's brought the issue that I was going to bring up. But I would say, just in a general comment, I completely understand Ms. Hill's concerns. She's living in a little community there, and it's all working and everything's fine and it's great, and now there's going to be a change of some kind, and of course people will be concerned that it might be a change for the worse rather than the better, but the thing is that there is always change. You've got a group of houses there, and from time to time a new owner will be taking possession of one of those houses because people move on or they pass away. So there is always change from time to time, and what the licensing committee will have to do in future is do what it can to make sure that this change is not detrimental to the residents round about. And I think as far as the planning is concerned, I think you know, Mr. Clark's given me a great deal of confidence, actually, because, you know, he's a specialist in this field, a great deal of experience, and he's doing it on a daily basis. It's not just a one-off thing for his company. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brays. Any other final comments? Nope. Okay, let's just move to sum up after all that we've heard and listened to. As we've heard, this application is for the change of use of a residential dwelling to enable its use as a short-term let. Objections have been submitted by a number of neighbours and cover issues such as amenity impacts caused by noise, including use from the outdoor swimming pools as we've heard, impacts on the character of the area, environmental impacts, and the acceptability of the management of the property. Now, a number of other areas of concern are listed at paragraph 7.3 of the report, but these have been addressed again in that report. Statutory consultees have raised no objection, and Angus Council's Environmental Health Department have raised no objection in relation to amenity impacts, subject to the planning condition requiring implementation of the noise and neighbour management plan, with a requirement for review on receipt of a justified complaint. I think the comments from Councillor Melville and Councillor Brays that we've just heard are actually very appropriate in bringing in terms of the fact that this has to go through licensing as well, and there are conditions that can be implemented there, and accountability going forward through STL as well. So having read the report in full, in my opinion, the use of the property for a mix of both short-term let and residential accommodation is of a scale and nature appropriate to its location. The proposal is in accordance with the development plan. We've heard particularly in policies TC16 of the Angus Local Development Plan and policy 30 of NPF 4, as it will provide additional visitor accommodation and does not give rise to unacceptable impacts on amenity, local residential accommodation, road safety or infrastructure that can't be mitigated. As the proposal complies with relevant policies of the development plan, and there are no material considerations that justify a refusal of the planning application contrary to the provisions of the development plan, I'm going to move to approve the application subject to the conditions stated in the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLaren, thank you. Are there any amendments? No? Okay, thank you. In that case, planning application number 25/00369/full is hereby approved, subject to the conditions stated. Thank you. It's a short meeting this morning. Thank you everyone for attending our contributions and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener.
Can we stop the live?